Each and every day when you shop at Buy Right Lighting, check out the everyday savings and selection and come into the nearest Buy Right Lighting showroom today and buy right.
You can save up to 30% at Save on Foods. That's like getting 4 bags of groceries for the price of 3. How far did you travel to come shopping tonight?
North Van.
Mike, why?
You save yourself money. Even if you have to pay it on gas, you save yourself money on groceries.
Save on Foods in Coquitlam, North Delta, Richmond, Burnaby, Langley, and Chilliwack.
And I personally guarantee you will save money.
Good morning. Damage must be in the tens of millions in the Pemberton Valley area after 4 days of heavy rain and flooding. Rescue work is still proceeding, of course, and many families' lives have been devastated. Let's have a look at some of the action yesterday before we bring you up to date on today. This is the Pemberton Valley.
This is the Pemberton Meadows, Jack, just northwest of the town of Pemberton, which is completely flooded. There's a school bus up to its window tops. This is just one example of some of the devastation. This was shot yesterday. That's the BC rail line that they do not know yet when that will be open again and when that can be cleaned up.
Critics are already appearing of the lack of preparations for this flood, but on the telephone now I've got Mayor Shirley Henry of Pemberton. Shirley, how does it look this morning? Is there any break in the weather, and is the water down by how much?
Hello, Jack. The water has receded over 8 feet this morning. Things are looking much better.
Much better. So there are actually, how many families would you say have been squeezed out of their homes now? Flooded out, I should say.
We, from a count yesterday, they figure there were probably about 177 homes that received severe damage yesterday.
Now, the Cabinet's meeting in Vancouver this morning, have you any special demands you want to make on them this very day? Or is the emergency relief and all that's being done, all possible being done right now?
I think everything possible is being done. We've had tremendous support from the provincial government. We've got engineers from the Ministry of Environment with us, and the PEP Co-ordinator has been with us the full time. We couldn't ask for much more at this point.
Do you intend to feel that this BC rail line has acted as a dam and that should have been bridged and not culverted?
I don't think that I can make too many comments on that. It may have helped if, those culverts weren't there, but maybe they've served a purpose, in keeping some of the water back and causing even more of a disaster.
Is this the first in the last 4 years where Pemberton really has been so badly hit?
It's the worst that I know, and talking to local residents, it's worse than the flood in 1940.
Worse than that. It's the worst there for in 44 years. Have you any idea of what the damage estimate could be, or are we just whistling Dixie?
I think we're whistling Dixie, Jack. At this point, there's no way we can start putting a dollar value on the damage.
Best of luck, Shirley. We'll keep in touch. My thanks to Shirley Henry, the Mayor of Pemberton. Thanks, Shirley. And I'll be back after the break with Steve Wyatt's up-to-date report on the disastrous flooding in that area. Webster reporter Wyatt was helicoptered, flew, sailed, and drove around the disaster area yesterday.
Any way we could, yeah, that's right.
Pick up and tell me what you saw and show me some of it.
Okay, Jack, we spent most of the day in the Pemberton Valley yesterday and saw this as we flew over Pemberton Meadows. That's northwest of the town itself. The water, as Mayor Henry said earlier, was 8 feet higher yesterday and has gone down somewhat, but this was the scene we fell across. It went up dramatically from Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday morning. 177 families were evacuated from these homes. It's mostly rich agricultural land. This is the source of the problem. This is a runoff creek from the glacier above Meager Creek. Warm weather combined with heavy rains forced the snow and the ice down, flooded the Meager Creek, ran into the Lillooet River, and then flooded back into the Pemberton Valley. The weather up here was the Lillooet River is flooding Pemberton Meadows back, and a man-made dike, that's Highway 99, combined with the railway, is forcing the water back into Pemberton Meadows.
That's where the inquest is going to be.
In town here, certainly a lot of it could have been prevented. We've got two man-made dikes here, man-made lakes, if you wish. We have the highway down here, dam number 1. We have the railway track here, dam number 2. If the BC Rail had a bridge down here at the corner of the track years ago, which would handle this whole flow. They took the bridge out and put culverts in. They were totally inadequate. Okay, so there's dam number 1. That's what's flooding my house and everybody up around the high school area. They're all being flooded because of that dam there. If that bridge was left in and another bridge under the highway down here to let it through, then this water would all drain off. Right now the river has dropped about 2 feet, and yet the water in my house is still up to the floor. It hasn't moved.
Well, as I understand, Jim has been here a lot longer than I have, but it was certainly known.
You think
it wasn't handled properly?
You think it could have been prevented?
Yeah. Even as late as yesterday afternoon, several of us approached the people in charge and told them to blow that up or dig it up and to take out the highway and get it moving, but they bungled that one.
Diking has to be extended up beyond the diking district and the water controlled up on the top end of the valley.
Before it reaches the town?
Before it reaches the town.
Why has nobody seen this before?
It probably has been seen by the local people before. It certainly has been seen by me. And I wrote the letter to the Minister of Environment, which was then Mr. Rogers. And as you know, no funds. That's the answer I got.
A representative of the government dropped in later in the afternoon yesterday. On board that helicopter is John Reynolds, the MLA for the district. He was sent by the Premier to survey the damage. He was met at the Pemberton field office for the Ministry of Forests by Mayor Henry.
Peter, my friend.
Good to see you. You made it over all right?
Oh, yeah, I've been...
The road's washed out, though, between here and your place. We just flew up there.
Well, yeah, I've been through this since early this morning.
He came with news of the guidelines, at least, of what kind of aid for flood victims will be available.
The assistance program falls, so the first $2.8 million is paid for by the provincial government, and everything above that is 50% by the federal government, with the exception of Mount Currie in this area, which is a reserve, which would be paid 100% by the federal government.
Are the people going to have to make a specific application, listing their damage and that sort of thing? Is that the way it works?
That's the normal procedure.
And how soon would they be able to do that? Once they can get back into their homes, obviously.
Yeah, I would imagine you have to get back in your homes. We have to assess the problems, and we should have some answers very shortly. But the people can be assured that we're here, we're as concerned. Our main concern was for their lives, and we're still concerned about that in this type of weather. And but that's the main concern. After that, everything will be looked after.
Super, thank you.
After a tour of the region, he met with Cabinet last night and is expected to have some word for the residents today. They are expecting some good news, at least. Underneath that water is a road they normally drive on to get home. 177 families, as Mayor Henry said, were evacuated. Their homes are devastated. Water was up to the top of the garage doors yesterday afternoon. The high school is submerged. That's a school bus which was forced away from the driveway by the current of the flooding river. That bus is completely flooded.
Looks like there's somebody sitting in it. There isn't, is it?
No, there's no one in there, no.
No. Except fish, maybe.
This is Larry Allen, and we met with him as he first returned to his home.
How's it look?
Take a look. It's right underwater.
Are you able to save anything?
Well, I'm going to try to save this if I can. And whatever, it's just one hang of a mess. I actually got a whole bunch of snowmobile clothing I took out from a shop. And it's all in here too, and it's floating around, so. And I got $34,000 worth of the snowmobile parts over there, so. I lost lots. I got brand new machines that's under this water here. Plus I lost cows over here.
How many head of cow?
I got a bull. It's right down there on the bank. You can see it over there. We just took a bale of hay down and threw it to him there now. A big black bull that I bought off old George Underhill. Attaboy. Yeah, well, I'm going to try and salvage these. There's too much money involved with those.
Yeah, I think about here.
Sure.
As the water began to recede, some of the roads became visible again, but still a portage is required to get to some of these other homes. Here's Mike Edwards discovering his house.
Took 3 years to build that.
How's it? What's the state of it now?
It's pretty bad.
Is it?
Yeah.
Where?
Well, the main floor is pretty well ruined. You know, the water's obviously been about 2 feet higher. It's full of slime and grit. And the water's running through it right now. And there's a lot of things destroyed. You know, piano, books, freezers turned upside down. God damn, I think my liquor's even in trouble.
Well, can you save that?
I don't know. But I guess...
Looks like a new house.
It is. It's 3 years old. My wife and I built that together over the last 3 years. So.
Shame.
Yeah, it's a nice spot, though.
And there were others who were equally philosophical, like Larry Hamula.
They're not getting me out of my place. No goddamn way. Everything is upside down now.
Where are you?
Oh, just in that log house down here. There's about 3.5 feet of water going past my place. All over shit, you wouldn't believe it. I got cabbages, kubasa, sauerkraut, everything. Potatoes, eh?
Are you going to be able to save any of it?
Oh. I'll have to wait till next spring, I guess, and have it, you know.
How long have you been living around here?
Over 30 years.
Never seen anything like this before?
I'd never seen anything like this before in my whole entire life.
What are you going to do now?
I'm going to stay here. Matter of fact, I'm even going to get buried here. To hell with it.
Well, you can go swimming here now.
You know, my 2 girls, they went out and rescued 17 chickens, and they were right up to the water that high behind my house. And they saved all them chickens, except 3 died.
Good for you.
We had to put them in the house by the fireplace, and we dried them out. Really. Isn't that right? It was something.
Gosh, the experiences of Hamula, Allen, and Edwards, I think it was, really bring it home to you. Absolute misery.
Yeah, it's remarkable about those people, you know, Jeff, because they all had a sense of humor. We spent most of the day with 2 fellows and went with them back to their homes, and they were laughing. I mean, you have to laugh at some point, right? Because you can't just worry about it all the time.
When there's no life lost, you can always laugh. But what a mess.
Oh,
and think of all the complications about the legal claims.
Oh, it's horrible.
We're going to be talking to some of the people involved in that later in the program. You better get back out there this afternoon for tomorrow morning, unless the water goes down like a miracle.
I'm still drying my socks.
Fair enough. Back with Tony Brummett, who's now in a cabinet meeting with social credit. I think it's the second item on the agenda this morning, the flood problems, after the break. And now to Jim Elliott, the mayor of Squamish, a man who survived a number of flood problems, to ask you, Jim, how are things in Squamish this morning?
Oh, they're very good in Squamish. There's a little bit of dampness, but there's nothing wet anywhere.
Well, now, you had a bad time in 80 and 81 and 82, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We had a very bad time in 80, Christmas 80 and Halloween 81.
What saved you this time?
Our dikes. We have spent about $4 million in dikes, and they probably saved $6 million in claims this weekend.
So therefore your dikes have paid for themselves in a couple of days.
That's right.
Are you now happy with your dikes? They've been tested and you don't need any more?
I'm very happy with them. We still have 2 other rivers that are not diked, but we don't have too many. We do have people living up along the Cheakamus, but it's a hard proposition to try diking there.
What about the people in Tantalus? Is it still cut off?
It's still cut off yet this morning, Tantalus, but the water is down an awful lot. They are able to get around to some extent up there.
How long do you think it'll be before the water disappears, if the rain stays off?
Oh, tomorrow.
Tell me, do you know anything about this BC rail line that people are saying is a dam instead of and that the culverts couldn't handle the water further up the valley?
That would be up at Pemberton. No, I'm not familiar with it at all.
Are you housing any of the people who've been flooded out at all?
Pardon?
Are you housing any of the people?
I phoned them yesterday and asked if we could be any assistance, but I haven't heard anything back.
What about the Daisy Lake problem? Is it? They opened the dam at Daisy Lake, didn't they?
They Had to. If they hadn't opened it, it would have flowed over. And
There
if it
was
starts flowing over, you can lose the footings.
There was a complaint in Tantalus Village, I believe, yesterday by some of the residents that Daisy Lake was lowered too much and there was too much runoff, and that caused some of the flooding. Is that accurate?
Tantalus would never know whether Daisy Lake was open or shut. They're about 10 miles up the Squamish River, and Daisy Lake is on the Cheakamus River.
Anyway, you're quite relaxed this morning, reasonably happy. The dike's held, and that's saved for $4 million, probably saved 6 or 7 million in claims.
That's right.
And you think if the water, if the rain stays off, we should be back to mud and debris tomorrow.
That's right. Our Squamish River, the big one, is down 5.5 feet this morning.
One last question. After your compensation claims a couple of years ago, were people generally pretty happy with what the assessors did for them?
Yes, they were.
Thanks very much, Jim Elliott, Mayor of Squamish.
Thank you.
Much obliged. I'm going to talk to Mark Angus, I think, Mayor of Whistler, in a minute or two. But in the meantime, let's say we pre-taped an interview with Tony Brummett, and I want to show you that right now, in which he's just going into a cabinet meeting in which the flood problems will be discussed, the damage problems especially. Here is Tony Brummett, Minister of the Environment. You'll be going into the cabinet meeting in Vancouver in a few minutes, Mr. Brummett. What action do you think might be taken by the government in view of this repeated disaster up at Pemberton and on that area?
Well, of course, things have been done in the past in trying to build dikes. Obviously, the dikes weren't high enough, so that will be one discussion. The other thing that we'll have to consider is, you know, in what way and to what extent we can help the people who have been severely hurt by this flood.
Does the federal provincial emergency relief program go into action automatically, or only after the provincial government declares it such?
Well, all emergency efforts, such as rescuing people, putting them up, making sure they're clothed, fed, and housed, goes into effect immediately. There's no action needed. What has to be considered by Cabinet then is the compensation that should be provided.
In other words, there's no limit on emergency relief needed right on the spot, and the provincial government does everything it can. But when the waters subside, then you've got to once again put in your assessors, get federal cooperation, and start paying out damage, maybe for the second or third time, to some of these unhappy people up there.
Well, I don't think that's so much true at Pemberton as it was in some other areas. And as I understand, the dikes at Squamish, which were built to the 200-year flood level, have basically held. I'll be getting, of course, more information on that. But I should mention, too, that we just get going on it, and we have to make decisions, because the first $1 per provincial capita money is provincial money, and the federal program only kicks in after that.
Yeah, Pemberton, Squamish seems to have held reasonably well on this occasion, and the floodplain seems to be in most ways protected. Pemberton's a brand new problem. You're going to have a good look at this BC rail line, which seems to be acting as a dike, in which the locals are complaining has backed up the water and caused much of the flooding. I didn't hear that last year, did you?
No, of course, the flood seems to move around this year. It's in the Pemberton area, and I understand that Meager Creek was, there was a slide or a damming of the creek there which precipitated that, plus a very heavy local rainfall there. And I don't know to what extent the BC-R line can be blamed. Naturally, it's not unusual for people to look for, you know, where the problems lie, but we'll just have to assess each one and work at it. In the Pemberton area, for instance, the dikes there were built to the 50-year flood level under the ARDSA program, which is generally sufficient to protect agricultural land.
Tell me, Mr. Brummett, is it automatic, really, that the people can sit back, they can't relax, and say to themselves, well, we will get compensation for our fridges, our furniture, our house repairs, or is some of it covered by their own insurance? We go through this every year, and I wonder if we're going to just have to go through this every year from now until time immemorial.
Well, the only reason that the government gets into compensation at all is because people have been hurt, and it's you can't insure against flood damage.
Mm-hmm. They tell me they picked you off a mountainside in your helicopter to get you down here.
Well, yes, I had planned this week off and was hunting And when the helicopter came and circled and located the boat and kept circling, then I realized he might have been looking for me, so I exposed myself on a ridge, and he found me and he picked me off the ridge.
And I understand he couldn't land on the late ridge and that you had to swing yourself up onto it and into the helicopter at considerable personal risk.
Well, I didn't see it as a personal risk. I did have to swing myself up because the brush was too high. He couldn't set the helicopter down, but obviously the pilot knew what he was doing and invited me aboard, so I climbed aboard.
Cabinet meeting started at 9 o'clock. The start's at 9 o'clock this morning, and you may have some words for the people of Pemberton, Squamish and BC after the meeting.
Well, I would hope so. It may not be that soon, Jack, because we first of all have an Economic Development Committee meeting at 9, and then Cabinet will follow that, and I'll be finding out just when that happens.
Are you going to swing into that helicopter yourself today and have a look at the Pemberton area?
Well, I'm meeting with my deputy minister this morning. He and an engineer and the water controller were up yesterday, and so after talking to him, I'll decide whether there's any merit in spending any more money in the helicopter for me to look at it or take the engineer's reports.
Do they confirm what other people have said on the ground, that this is the worst yet?
Well, obviously it's the highest that from what I've heard so far. What damage has been done will have to be assessed once the waters recede. In other words, there's water over roads, there's water over land, and until the water goes down, it'll be fairly difficult to decide exactly how much long-term effect there is.
My thanks to Tony Brummett, Minister of Environment. Thanks, Mr. Brummett.
Okay, thank you very much, Jack.
Later in the program, I want to get some experiences from people who've been through the disaster flood relief to see if they've got any kind of fair deal, see what kind of deductible there is, see how much private insurance applies to it, see how many people have been paid 2, 3 or 4 times. Not that you can really refuse them if they've built on a lot which has been okayed by a municipality, which has been okayed by the provincial government, which in the final analysis carries the total blame for the mess up there. And don't forget that. If this government gets a chance to put its foot in it, it does it instantly. Brummett was very nice this morning, but I often wonder how they pass their time in Victoria. I'll be back after the break. Milt Fernandez, who is the fire chief in Pemberton, voluntary fire chief, isn't that right, Milt?
Yes, that's right.
And you're the emergency program coordinator?
Yes, that's right.
The kind of disaster relief man?
Yes.
Did you just get back from your helicopter tour a few minutes ago?
Yes, I did.
What have you got to tell me this morning?
Well, we've got a big improvement over what we had last night.
How much would you say the water's down?
It's down about 8.5 to 9 feet.
So therefore some of the land is coming to the surface again, is that right?
Yes, it is. It sure is.
But what does the damage look like from the air? And do you believe, as we've been told this morning, that this rail line contributed greatly to forming a dam behind it?
Well, I've flown this route 3, 4, 5 times now, and it's not just that one problem. There are many factors, and it's hard to pick one out and blame one without blaming the other 5.
In other words, you can blame the rain for it.
Yes, the rain contributed. The dike contributed to it. The trestle held a little bit back, but before the trestle held it back, there was another hold back. After the trestle held it back, there was another hold back again.
There wasn't a time when any of these rail lines should have been blown up to let the water away, was there?
No, I don't think we could afford to gamble with that. We still had too many house trailers in the path of the water.
When do you think the people will get back into their houses, Milt?
Well, we're trying to get a few in now, and Department of Highways is heading up the valley now. We have 2 breaks in that particular highway, and they'll need culverts and filling in, and it possibly could be open by tonight, that road.
Which road is that?
From Pemberton up to Pemberton Meadows.
Pemberton to Pemberton Meadows might be open by tonight, eh? The estimate of the total damage would just be a wild guess, wouldn't it?
I wouldn't even guess at this time.
Milt, I'm sure a lot of people are grateful for the efforts of your voluntary fire brigade, and your work is so and so on. Very much obliged for your cooperation.
Fine, thank you.
Thanks, Milt. Where is Mark Angus? His Worship Mayor Mark Angus, the Mayor of Whistler, BC. Mark,
Jack?
You're sitting high and dry up there this morning, are you?
Well, for once, yes, we are. We're doing all right here. In fact, I guess we've offered the people of Pemberton a limited number of hotel rooms free of charge, and in fact, a few of the community groups have gotten together food and so forth, and they're sending it up right now, actually, by helicopter and driving some of them.
Oh, so if they want to make it up to your place and there's no place to stay, they can have a fancy hotel room for free for a few days.
That's right. All they have to do is phone the Whistler Resort Association, and that's at 932-4222.
932-4222.
That's right.
We better watch the no smart Alex from Vancouver try and get in the offer for a free weekend.
Well, we know a lot of the people in Pemberton, as they're our closest neighbors, so we'll know who they are.
When did you last have trouble?
Well, a couple of our rivers got rather high. Fitzsimmons Creek took a few banks out in the river, and also the Checamus came down towards our sewer treatment plant, and came very close to a new expansion of the plant, but quick action, and we're rip-wrapping and filling in the river bank right now, and everything seems to be all right.
So the sewer was very nearly in the fan, the sewage treatment plant.
Yeah, almost, but it was our Public Works Department was right there.
Good. You haven't been in as much trouble since you ran for the Liberals, have you?
Oh, that was no problem.
Thanks very much, Mayor Mark Angus of Whistler.
Pardon me?
Thank you very much, Mark.
Okay, thanks very much, Jack.
Bye. I'll play golf with you when the water disappears from the golf course.
Yeah, it's a little wet right now, so wait for the spring.
Okay, dokie. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We're going to go back and we're going to take some phone calls on the effectiveness of provincial flood emergency relief, praise and or criticism for it. Keep you up to date on the flood capers, and have a free-for-all this morning. We've got some stuff standing by, but free-for-alls are better, I think, after the break. Hold on, please. Hold on, please. Are they both flood calls? Yeah. I'll take this call from Victoria. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm aware of a booklet, or what do you call it, a handout that the Ministry of Environment puts out called Flood-Proofing New Residential Buildings in British Columbia. And just wondering if people know about it.
You can't flood-proof 8 feet of water.
Well, you can with certain fill and building.
Oh, yeah, building techniques, but many of the houses up there they're all properly built to the building code, but when you get 8 feet of water, you can't flood protect. It comes in the door apart from anything else.
Yeah, but what about building on elevation and whatnot?
That's right, but people go along and they get a building permit and they get an approval from the local authority, and it's inspected, and the foundations are inspected, and the drains are inspected, and the house goes up. And as you know, many houses in British Columbia have been built on what are official flood plains. Much of the Fraser Valley is on an official flood plain, and when the 50-year flood comes, it'll be trouble in the valley in due course.
Well, who has the responsibility then? Government?
The provincial government has the responsibility.
I see.
Totally, thank you. Actually, the emergency relief money is a simple formula between the federal government and the provincial government. The province picks up the first $2.8 million of damage. That's $1 per head for the 2,800,000 people in BC. And then up to $3 per head, they share that 50-50 with the feds. It's an official agreement. After $5 per head, the federal government in Ottawa picks up 90% of the cost. So the worse the flood damage is, the more is picked up by the federal government. And as I recall from the last time, after the waters have subsided, and the cabinet has ruled that the area is eligible for disaster relief, the government puts ads in the papers telling people to pick up claims forms, and then they set up claims adjuster centres, and then the argument begins between the householder or the businessman and the claims adjuster. And of course there's often a big difference between what the housekeeper thinks he should get, or the businessman, and what the government claim actually pays on the emergency relief fund. Some people try to get too greedy, and sometimes the government is too stingy. It's one of these things that just goes on and on and on endlessly. Okay, where am I going now? Go ahead from Pemberton, please.
Yeah, Jack. You just had a caller from Victoria commenting on having your houses built up on high ground and not being flooded. Well, a lot of these houses that were flooded are built up on their levels, but it's pretty hard when you got 20 feet of water sitting there and flowing in on your upper floors, and your house is already 15 feet above the floodplain.
Yeah, that's crazy. You're 15 feet, you've got 20 feet of water, you've got 5 feet in your house.
That's right.
Well, you flooded...
These people here are looking at their houses. I know some of them just built some. My friend here, he's just passed out now, and he's been up since Sunday morning, and it's the first sleep he's got.
Trying to preserve his house.
Yeah, he doesn't even know the damage in there yet.
Tell me.
It's going to be pretty tough when you're just a young couple starting, and you got to turn around and try and make a go of it. And they work up in the Meager Creek area, and it doesn't look like they're going to be working for the rest of the year up that way. It makes it a little tough for them.
I can never get it right on your own insurance. I don't know if my house insurance covers flood or not.
Well, it doesn't, and a lot of these people, last time I know when people claim for floods, they only got about 50 cents for the dollar for the damage, and a lot of the problems, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Have any of your friends been, is this a second time flooding for any of your area?
Oh yeah, for some of them it is, and others it's just the first time. They just didn't know how to take it, but they're just laughing right now because...
Yeah, Steve was talking to a number of people up there who had incredibly bright smiles on their face considering the miseries they're facing right now. How about your own place?
Oh, I was one of the lucky ones. I've been putting up a lot of people over the last few days. We were about 5 feet from the water level.
You're on higher ground?
A little higher ground. We're just a little lucky. We're right in town here.
And that's what made all the difference?
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Thanks for your call. Best of luck.
And I just want to give a compliment to the volunteer firemen and volunteers that were out helping for the whole time here. Like I say, some of them, this is the first time they've been to bed since Sunday, so we'd just like to give them
a good round of applause. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it's now Wednesday morning. That's on the 4th day. Thanks very much for calling, sir.
Okay.
Bye. Go ahead, please. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Pardon me?
That's you. Speak up, sir.
Jack?
Yes.
Yes, I was wondering where the logic rides in national defense, the money that's put out for that, and the money for natural defense.
Thank you, sir, and good morning. I don't know what you're talking about. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
Earlier on, I think it was the Pemberton Fire Chief was listing a variety of factors that contributed to the flooding, including rain and the dike and so forth. But he didn't mention anything about clear-cut logging. And, this is typically ignored with these flooding problems, and I certainly wouldn't want to blame logging for the entire problem, but all those side valleys above Pemberton that used to hold trees and that have been logged used to soak up a lot of the rain.
Of course they did, but were they recently logged?
No, but when you get a 50-year flood cycle or, something along those lines, then the problem intensifies that much more.
This seems to be 44 years since the last bad one in Pemberton, which was in 1940. But of course, that's been a problem very much on the Squamish Highway and all these creeks because of the logging up above and the debris coming down. But
right. I just think it's important that that aspect of the issue starts to be discussed because, the environmental costs of massive clear-cut logging sooner or later come home to roost, and maybe that's partly what we're seeing here now is those environmental costs translating into economic costs, and perhaps it's time we start taking a harder look at that.
It probably is. Go ahead, please. From Victoria, is it?
Yes. I would like to know how long the people in Pemberton expect the people in BC and the rest of Canada to help pay for their flood damages. Like, why do they live there if they know it's a flood area over the years?
Well, let's give you a fairly clear answer. People who build fancy houses along Lions Bay and Sunset Beach, perched on the edge of a cliff for a view, with a torrential stream coming down behind them, of which they're well aware when they buy the house, I have for them no financial sympathy whatsoever. But ordinary working people who are living in a trailer camp which has been approved by a municipality or a provincial government, or ordinary people making a living in an ordinary way in ordinary houses, must get compensation from all of the taxpayers of British Columbia if they get flooded out by an act of God, by rain.
They let the provincial government let them build there then?
Provincial government's to blame if anybody's to blame, but
why don't we do something about the...
Well, you get social credit, you know what you get.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so it's got such a fine, warm, compassionate, helpful, confused, stumble-bum government that you can't expect very much from them at all.
Yeah.
So don't try and blame the poor people up at Pemberton who've lost thousands of dollars in personal possessions. Apart from the misery, they deserve a cash bonus to go out on a party, if nothing else. But the people of the fancy places in the waterfront who get swept away, good luck to them. Except, you know, sympathy, but no money. Go ahead from Hope.
Good morning, Mr. Webster.
Good morning.
I just hope that the people up at Pemberton are recompensed for their damages better than we were along the Coquihalla River in Hope. The flood that happened in January of this year when the river overflowed and houses were damaged and exterior was damaged. When all this was taken into consideration and we put in a claim which was approximately $5,000, then we were told by the assessor who came around that the minimum that they would pay on is $13,500. So actually we received nothing.
How many houses were flooded or damaged?
Well, our house was damaged. There was also houses down the Coquihalla towards the town of Hope that were damaged as well.
And you were told by whom? The Ministry of Environment, the claims adjusters?
The claims adjusters were the ones who told us.
That the minimum damage, in other words, that the deductible was $13,500?
Absolutely correct, Mr. Webster.
Is that right? 13.5?
That is right.
13,500?
Yes, sir.
Now, what about your own private insurance policy? It didn't cover it at all.
No, that doesn't cover an act of God.
Yeah. And so you got 5,000 damage and they said, away with you. So you had to go back and increase the damage to 14,000, in which case you'd have got $500.
Well, if we'd had $14,000, yes, we would have got $5,000.
Whereabouts at Hope are you?
We're right along the Coquihalla River, sir, in Glen Halla subdivision.
That's in Hope?
That's in Hope.
Oh yeah, Coquihalla. That's the place where they're going to take the tolls off just before the next election if they get the road built.
Yes, I'm talking about the river, not the highway.
I know. Well, thanks, sir. And I'd like to get some more experiences on flood claims with the provincial government, and especially deductibles. I'm much obliged, sir. Bye. Free for all after the break. Well, the water's down 8.5 feet at Pemberton this morning, so things are looking up, long as the rain stays away. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, morning, Jack.
Morning.
Yeah, I was camping up at Meager Creek on Saturday night, and I'd just like to thank Mayor Shirley Henry for all her help to get us out and everything.
Were you the family I saw on the telly?
No, I wasn't, no.
Where were you? You were camping at Meager Creek. What happened to you? Tell me. Did you have your kids with you?
No, there's just a group of friends up there with me, and on Sunday morning, a friend woke up early because there was water in his tent, and got up and moved our truck. Luckily, he moved it just in time.
Just in time. And were you cut off? How did you get out?
By bus.
And Shirley sent a bus for you?
You bet, yeah.
Oh, good for Shirley. I was talking to her this morning. That's an odd time of the year to go camping.
Oh, not really, no.
Were you fishing or what?
No, just sitting in the hot tubs up there.
Sitting in the hot tubs? Whose hot tubs?
All right, at Meager Creek, there's a hot tub up there.
What do you mean, just on the highway or what?
No, off the highway a couple hundred yards.
Yeah, whose hot tub?
I think it was built by the Department of Hydro, I'm not sure.
You're telling me there's a public hot tub up there?
Oh, you bet, yeah.
At Meager Creek? You're not pulling my leg, are you?
No, not at all. Why else would we go up there?
Is it a natural hot spring?
Yep.
At Meager Creek?
Yep.
And there you are drinking and having an orgy in a hot tub on the highway at Meager Creek, and down come the rains.
Yeah, you got that right. I think Bill Bennett's daughter or niece was up there, too.
Oh, goodness gracious me. Thanks for your call, old boy. Learn something new every day. Hot tub at Meager Creek. Go ahead, please.
I was up in Tronquil in 1947-48 during the flood there. I had a friend up there who suggested and wrote to the government at that time that they take air pictures at the highest level of all the floods that were and see that houses were built above that flood level. This would do two things. It would not only keep the houses where they belong, but it would keep the farmland where it is needed for all mankind. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, ma'am, I think a floodplain plan was prepared for most of British Columbia, and then it was ignored in the breach in many areas under population pressure. Now, how about Kamloops? Are there any houses built in floodplains there?
No, I was only up there in the sanitarium during 1947-48.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I thought you was an expert in floodplains. Go ahead from Victoria.
Hello, Jack. How are you?
I'm not bad at all.
Fine. I probably am offering a suggestion that is of no use at all to these people, but I just came back from Trinidad in the West Indies, and they have a solution for this flood problem over there.
What's the solution?
They have 12 to 16 feet cement pillars under all their houses, and they use the bottom part for a patio.
Excellent idea. We'll have every house in BC rebuilt in any floodplain. This guy's out of his tree. Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate your program this morning. I heard Mayor Elliott on your program, and he said nothing about a bridge being washed out on the Cheakamus River near the Cheakamus subdivision.
Yeah, he mentioned trouble at Cheakamus.
But he didn't say anything about our road being washed out and the bridge. I'm back from Edmonton and I can't get home. There's absolutely no access. Cheakamus subdivision.
Oh, in the Cheakamus subdivision. Is that the first time that bridge has been out?
No, it's a relatively new bridge, perhaps almost 3 years old, I believe.
And did you try to drive up there?
I can't. I can't get home. It's impossible.
So what are you going to do, love? Just stay in Vancouver until they fix the bridge?
To stay out here until I can get home somehow.
I don't think it'll be his responsibility to build the bridge. It's got to be the Highways Department, hasn't it?
No, we're municipal.
It's a municipal bridge within Squamish.
Right.
Okay, I'll get one of my reporters to phone Elliott and see what plans there are to get you home to the Cheakamus subdivision, right?
Thank you very
We'll
much.
do that now and give you on the air before the end of the program.
Thank you then.
Anne, will you do that? Find out about that. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Jack, I was listening to your program a while back about complaining about the government, and you consider a lot of the other countries how hard off they have it when they have to be protected when we go to vote. Isn't it glad that we're a democratic society here, that we can choose our government?
Yes, sir. I endorse that banal remark with the greatest of enthusiasm.
Well, I as you've proven over your shows, we know who you voted for, but...
Who did I vote for? Who did I vote for?
I don't know. Definitely not the present government that we have in BC.
My father would turn over in his grave if I voted Social Credit. I would turn over in my grave if I voted for NDP.
That's good, because...
My granny and all the other generations would turn over if I voted Tory. I generally vote in a negative manner against the guy whom I dislike most, who's running in my riding.
Well, what irritates me is everybody complains about the government they got in, but they're lucky that they have a vote, because, you know, in some other countries they don't
Well,
have
there are some political parties in this country, I wouldn't leave it to them to decide who are going to keep the vote, but as this is a free country, and God willing, it will stay a free country.
Maybe every 8 years compulsory to change the government, everybody would be happy because they'd only have to wait 8 years then.
No, that's stupid. Thank you. Go ahead from Pemberton.
Hello there.
Hello there.
The overall picture in here is that there's a multiple ways that the flood can happen, and there's just thousands of ways for places to go. It depends. It goes to the lowest land. You build up one area, it goes to the other.
Water generally finds its own level, sir.
That's right. But the main problem is the overall picture of planning for this area. The number one, the dike reserve area, or the dike area doesn't go up the valley far enough.
You're talking about the... You're talking about the Pemberton dikes.
That's right.
Well,
and that doesn't protect all the farmers up there even, because beyond a certain point, nobody does any fixing. As far as the rest of the valley, there's no coordinated overall plan of development for the area. For instance, we're putting an airport in here, which takes up a few square miles of land, which was an island, a low island, which flooded and acted as a reservoir for a lot of the water. When you're talking about stoppages of water by trestles and by roads and what have you, there's another one just beyond that a little ways, which is the airport. So they put a dike around it, right?
Right.
That's fine. I'm all for progress. But let's get it all together so that there's some overall plan. They build a dike. We have just finished a 5-year reclamation plan in here. 5 million. 5 year, yeah. I don't know what the money was.
Well, you make a good point. One would hope that the regional district has some kind of coordinated plans, because after all...
The district has nothing to do with it. It's handled through the Water Resources Branch.
And that's entirely provincial government.
Diking district.
Or the Diking Commission.
Well, they're taking it up Victoria, but...
Yeah, we used to have a Diking Commission. I remember dealing with that in the Fraser Valley.
Yeah.
So it's not the regional district, it's the Diking Commission.
That's right.
Well, they seem to have done quite well at Squamish. I had Elliott on this morning saying that their $4 million of the dikes have stopped at least $6 million of the damage this one flood season.
But the thing is that it requires an overall plan that has got some continuity to it.
Yeah, good point. We'll maybe have a look at that, son. I'll be back with more calls after the break. No sooner said than done for the woman from the Chickamas subdivision who is stranded in Vancouver. Jim Elliott, Mayor, thanks very much. How did she get home, Jim? Are you going to take her home in a rowboat?
Well, no, she can go from Chikai to the Chickamas station on the railway. There will be a speeder running between Chikai and the Chickamas.
And it's running now?
Yeah, it'll be running 8 hours daily.
Thank...
It's on there for 8 hours a day. It won't run at night, but it will be there. And she can, once she gets to Chikai, which is free traveling from here, by taxi or any way she wants, and then she can get the jitney to take her to Chickamas.
On the rail line. I'm very much obliged, Mayor Elliott of Squamish. That was fast service indeed to my questioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Good. On the speeder from Chikai to Chickamas. Go ahead, please. Hello.
Hello?
That's you, ma'am.
Oh, hello. I live in Lions Bay. I saw the devastation that happened the last time the slides happened.
Right.
And I heard rumors that the reason we're having trouble with our creeks here now is because the Highways Department is so far behind in their dams. And I'm wondering if this water isn't coming down our creeks, where is it going? And are we in danger here? I can't get an answer from anybody.
I don't quite understand you. Try me again.
Well, the creeks are sort of raging in Lions Bay.
They always do.
And I'm worried because I've heard that the Highways Department is about 3 months behind in their work that they're doing to build the dams to control this water. And I'm wondering, how do you find out if we're in danger? I really am worried about it.
Now, I saw a report yesterday that some of the concrete abutments to hold back water, 300,000 damage had been done. Was that at Meager Creek?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it's the other creeks are raging, and I'm just wondering if there's any way that we can find out. I mean, if some of the water doesn't seem to be coming down our creeks, I'm wondering where it's going and where it's going to come down.
I'll try and get you an answer before the end of the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark, would you look at that story this morning about the $300,000 damage on the Squamish Highway? I think it's at Lions Bay and near it, and find out if there's any threat to Lions Bay at all from it. Maybe get the Provincial Highways Department to give us a word on that this morning, because the woman sounded legitimately concerned. From Powell River, go ahead, please.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Webster.
Yes, sir.
I'm just phoning you from Powell River, and I'm curious about one item, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching the news, and I see what's happening right now to all these poor people in the Pemberton Valley. Now, does Mr. Bennett have no heart whatsoever? Does he not have any heart? I mean, there's children involved there.
Well, much as I would like to blame Bennett, I can't blame him at this particular minute for inaction. The damn thing has only happened. If you're talking about overall planning to prevent Pemberton, if this is a 40-year flood high, it's one of those things very difficult to protect against.
Okay, but...
What do you mean he's got no heart? I mean, I'm prepared to dump on him if you can give me a good logical reason.
Okay, sir. You couple what's happening to the people in the Pemberton Valley, we have labor unrest throughout the whole province of British Columbia. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There are people out of work, there are people on food lines, just in general. Doesn't Mr. Bennett get the hint that that whatever he's trying to do isn't working? Can he not look past all the glory he's trying to seek through way of Expo and a few other things? And how about whatever happened to to just people?
Well, I can understand your frustrations, but the way I look at it at this particular moment is that one realizes very clearly and very gloomily that the architects of our future are not entirely within the province's control. Sure, they're a lackluster, unimaginative, penny-pinching, chiseling bunch. I mean, that's taken for granted.
Yes, sir.
And they've mishandled the labor relations in this province. We had a summer of heat and unrest which was totally unnecessary.
That's right.
Absolutely totally unnecessary. But when you come to the broad picture, you can't just dump on poor wee Billy. You've got to look at the federal government, the Libs. You've got to look at Mulroney. You've got to look at world trade. You've got to look at the fact that our lumber production at the moment is not selling to Europe at all. You've got to look at the fact that our mining industry is in a devastated shambles. And I don't want to spread alarm and despondency. Okay. The fact is that we need help from more than Bennett. Bennett is a very small player in the game of national prosperity. In fact, I would give Bennett some credit because by accident, he went ahead with the horrendously expensive ALRT. He built a stadium. He's poured billions of public money into Northeast coal. The Japanese are going to two-bit us to death on the price. They're going to use us as pawns in the game of cutting the price of coal as they cut the production of their steel. You can't blame Bennett for everything, but it is a particularly heartless type of government.
Okay, Mr. Webster, when I moved to British Columbia 14 years ago, okay, there was nothing for me as I was the eldest of a large family, a large number of children. Okay, there was nothing for me there. I come to British Columbia for a new start of my own life. When I came here, it was, to my understanding, okay? Now, we were, forestry was the prime industry of the province, followed by mining.
But what's your point?
Okay, now all I see as our prime industry in this province is welfare and unemployment.
Yeah, much as I'd like to blame it all on Bennett, I can't blame it all on Bennett.
Okay, but where do we start, sir? This is what I want to know.
I don't know where you start. You certainly won't get a hell of a lot of help out of the Tories. You may get some incentive to business. We have now dropped our policy of Canadian nationalisation. We've opened the doors to investments of all kind. We're going to amend the National Energy Programme, if we can believe what they say, and stop collecting the petroleum compensation account and stop subsidising Canadian oil operations. And then maybe in some year or so, Mulroney might manage to bring back the economy a little bit. But it looks like the dear old capitalist system is in one of its boom and bust cycles. We are behind the United States in recovery for a variety of reasons.
Mr. Webster, people listen to you. They listen very much to you. Why don't you move into public life and see if you can do something? Serious, sir.
Look, I've answered this question 1,000 times. A person like myself is of no value to any political party unless I had my own political party. When you join a political party, whether it be the NDP, Social Credit or Liberal, you must, quote, accept the whip. You must accept the policies of that party. I cannot imagine myself, if I were electable, and presumably I might get elected somewhere, I can't imagine myself sitting in a cabinet with Skelly or Bennett or Art Lee and accepting the majority consensus to which I must hew as a simple-minded automaton. There is no place for independent thinking in any political party in Canada. None. The best we can get from a political party under the British type of parliamentary democracy is a strong leader who becomes a virtual dictator by virtue of his majority. You watch Mulroney right now, for instance. Mulroney is the boss. Mulroney is the only man who will make any decision, even for any of his cabinet ministers, to go blow their noses.
Where do we find such a man? Where does the little man look?
Democracies only find such a man in times of national emergency. Only when things get bad do things get worse, do things get better. But I've been asked by every political party in the country to run for them, and I snicker modestly and I say thank you but no thanks. Imagine, I was once asked by George Hees to run for the Tories. Imagine sitting in a cabinet with George Hees and Sinclair Stevens, or sitting in a cabinet with a number of unmentionable members of the Social Credit Cabinet in Victoria and trying to pound sense into their heads? Can you imagine sitting in an NDP cabinet with a bunch of woolly-minded, mush-minded, left-wing socialists and a few kind of half-decent social democrats with whom you might be able to talk? Can you imagine sitting in a fractured Liberal Party led by Art Lee? God save us all. I'm a quitter, I'm a chicken. I should have made my decision 25 years ago. I didn't. So I'm fading gracefully into the sunset 10 years from now. I'll be back after the break. Webster's imitation of Webster the politician. I'm certainly glad you asked me that question. You've raised a point of considerable public importance, and there are many demands from both sides that we must tackle the problem either by going to the right or going to the left. I've considered this at length over many years, and from the depth of my wisdom, let me tell you this: something will be done. Now, it will be a positive move, done in the right frame of mind, bearing in mind the true interests of the ordinary people of this province. Mind you, 95% of it will have to be paid by these dirty, rotten Liberal or Conservatives in Ottawa, because after all, they steal all the money from British Columbia and give us nothing. So therefore, we are prepared to do, I've made up my decision, I'm going to short-circuit all the committees. I'm prepared to go ahead with this $5 billion development to re-establish the economy of British Columbia, and this province will put up $500. And we shall demand from the federal government they give us $4,999,999,950. Now, on that basis, and there's no reason, and I'm going to call a meeting with the federal prime minister at once to demand, just like in the stupid gas pipeline to southern Vancouver Island, that we will spend a penny if they will spend $1,000. So on that basis, I'll run for office. In the early days of social credit, I was once interviewing a cabinet minister. And I was fairly young. I was running about with a tape recorder in those days, and I was doing City Mike. Good evening. This is Jack Webster, and this is City Mike. It was at 6:05 p.m. precisely. And so, after great negotiations, I get in touch with this provincial social credit cabinet minister. So he was terribly nervous, and he said, "What questions are you going to ask?" I said, "Well, they'll be fairly simple." I used to write my questions. I'd make 10 points on a sheet of paper in those days. And he said, no, have to know the questions in advance. So I wrote the questions out for him. And then I rehearsed them in the answers. It's now about 5 o'clock. I need a program in the worst way for 6:05 p.m. So at about 5:30, I said, look, you're never going to be able to give me the answers. I'll write the answers as well. So I had written the questions, I wrote the answers, I got my little phony tape, and I used it on the air. That was one of my great, rewarding experiences with the caliber of ministers in social credit, some of whom haven't changed that much to this very day. Honest to God, when I write my book, I will not dare tell the truth. I'll maybe write it for publication after in my wee box. Touch wood and take it back. Telephone calls. I'm in a gabby mood this morning, am I now? I've gone out to speak to this conference on the anatomy of violence today. You know what Judy LaMarche said about me when she did an Ontario Royal Commission, the late Judy LaMarche, who was a very good friend of mine and whom I liked very much indeed? She said, the worst example of violence verbally in this country comes from a fellow called Webster who does a radio open line show in Vancouver. And you know perfectly well, all of you, how you old people who've followed me through the years, you know perfectly well how I have mellowed. Except when I'm dealing with the likes of Sven Robinson or, who else? Oh, the good old days with Gallardi. They were great fun. Gallardi once said to me, Jack, he said, if I tell a lie, it's only because I'm sincerely convinced I'm telling the truth. Run for politics? You're out of your mind. How about a one-night stand at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre? Go ahead from Vernon. Get me off the hook, please, caller.
Listen, Jack.
Yeah.
You used to call me Sergeant Willie.
Hello, Willie.
How are you?
Not bad.
What you're sounding like right now is like somebody that wouldn't sell, a Hurry Kirshner that wouldn't sell you a rose on Cadova Street.
Do you remember those days?
I remember those days.
I took the wig off his head.
Hey?
I lifted the wig off his head.
Yes, and you used some pretty...
strong language.
And I had to come down and bail you out. Remember?
I do remember it well. But he was a fairly small guy, and I could have dealt with him myself if I'd had to.
Yeah, but could you deal with... You're beginning to sound like a Hurry Kirshner that wouldn't sell you a rose.
You're right about that, too, and I do apologize for my performance this morning. Willie, how are you keeping?
Not too bad. I'm up in Vernon. I'm retired.
Lots of money?
No.
Enough to get by on?
Oh, you know, an index pension.
Oh, of course you have. Willie, give me a call off the air sometime. I got to go and make a fool of myself again.
Where to get a hold of you off the air?
Well, I'll give you a private number, 420-2288, local 351. 420-2288, local 351.
351.
That's it, Willie.
And local what?
No, 420-2288.
2288.
Local 351.
351.
Okay, Willie, I gotta go.
Maybe I'll see you at the next Burns dinner.
Well, do you remember the night I told the story about the judge in front of Ulrich?
Yes.
I don't think he ever forgave me. Okay, Willie, I gotta go. There are things about my particular career which I wouldn't put in my book. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I realize this isn't a high priority or anything, but I was just wondering how all the abandoned vehicles at Meager Creek are faring. If there's any way, you know, I've been watching the news for a few days and there's no word on the vehicles.
Well, I don't know. Steve, did you see Meager Creek yesterday? Lots of water? Lots of campers? Stay there till the waters go down.
Is there any idea of when or if it'll be before next spring?
Shout, Steve, shout. It's going to be weeks.
Lots of weeks, eh? Are they all right, or can you...
No, they're wet, dirty, and muddy. I don't think any have been swept into the creek, though, have they? No, the water came up fairly...
There's a few on the edge.
Few on the edge of the creek, not yet swept over. Maybe our helicopter people may take some shots of it today. Thanks, my dear. Gosh, it must be horrible to have a car stuck in the creek. How are we doing? Take a break. Take a break. Take a break. That call from the guy who said I was rude to Dalton Camp on election night. It was time I was rude to somebody in the East. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. Yes, you are mouthy today, but it's okay. You made me laugh a little bit.
Good.
I got a comment about, you're always saying that the governments are penny pinching. You know, I like them to be penny pinching. The trouble is, I think instead of, any idiot can call them that, but I think it would be much better if we as citizens would just call for reallocation of the money. You know, they collect an awful lot. They just use it in the wrong places. And I think it'd be a lot more constructive if we set at that instead of the other.
Yeah, priorities are what we're talking about. I have no objection to the government spending money right now to create jobs.
I think they should be told, you know, and your program is excellent for that. They should be told that, you know, this program we don't like, you know, this is something where you should spend money and this is where you shouldn't. I think that would be a lot more constructive. The thing on the floods, I don't think the government's 100% to blame. I think they're a great deal to blame because they don't plan properly. But the people that are there, I feel sorry for them, and they really should get compensation, but there should be some kind of a setup. Either get a fund for the flood-prone areas so that the people can contribute themselves if they want to stay there, or the government should have some kind of a system where someone that's been flooded out 3 times already has the opportunity to get out of that place.
You mean at public cost?
Yes. So, you know, if they wish to get out of that place, that, you know, whatever their property that they paid for it, get that kind of money and move out. I think that would be a lot more constructive than have somebody be flooded out.
Well, there might be a cheaper way to do it. You heard what the mayor of Squamish said this morning. The $4 million dikes protected Squamish from $6 million worth of damage.
Well, I think that's a good idea.
That's the easiest way to do it. But there is a diking commissioner, a diking authority, which may have been caught with its pants down by this 40-year cycle, if there was a 40-year cycle.
That kind of thing is understandable.
Let me give you another example. I haven't looked...
You know, this regular flooding, something that happens every, you know, couple, 3 years. Those people should be reallocated, and if they don't want to move, then it is up to them to, you know, get together, make up a fund, and fund themselves for their floods.
Now, I have an idea that during one of the last settlements, that some people had to sign documents saying that this would be the final claim if they stayed in that location.
Well, that makes sense to me, but I think
let me tell you something else.
If they have moved into a spot,
yeah, agreed.
They should get help to reallocate, but I think the reallocation would be a really good idea.
I remember once getting very fed up when I was doing a story a number of years ago on that slide area up there. What's it called, Steve? What's it called, Mark? The mountain that's going to fall over someday. It's in Garibaldi, anyway. And I remember there were some original residents in Garibaldi who were told by the government they had to move. And then there was fighting about what compensation they would get. And they wanted total 100% rehabilitated elsewhere compensation.
I don't think people should get that.
No, and neither do I.
Out of the house,
and in the years between.
Now, they paid, you know, $80,000 for the house. There's no way that I think the government should pay them $120,000 to reallocate.
Here, but in the years between, other people moved in there and built there. And then they joined in the clamour too, having known, as I recall, that they were in that dangerous, allegedly dangerous position when they built the houses there, and they're not entitled to anything.
That's right. I agree with that.
Okay, ma'am.
They aren't entitled. And you know what? This is a minor thing, and I don't want to knock the people that have been flooded. But I did know personally one person that bought and lived in a home on the flood area. This was in Prince George. And there was one year, you know, he was planning to move, and he was really hoping, I hope that it comes up high enough so that I'll be able to get the money out. And, you know, stuff like that happens too occasionally.
Thank you, ma'am.
I really
Thank you,
don't
ma'am.
like it kind of burns me.
Because you talk as much as I do. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, what I don't like about is the government's, you know, putting it on the back burner, and this lotto thing is more in their planning. And if I was a cartoonist, I would have a picture depicting the 3 mayors. That would be the mayor of Pemberton and the mayor of the Interior. And what I'd have is I have Bill Bennett forcing the mayor of Pemberton's head in the water while at the same time paying the mayor of the Interior money for his lotto plan.
Yeah. But it's kind of pathetic when our big deal for employment in Kamloops is 120 jobs in the lottery, BC Lottery Foundation. It's better than nothing, I'll tell you that. But if that's the best they can do for employment, God help us all.
The thing is that, you see, when somebody's in trouble, that should be priority. I mean, they can always discuss this afterwards. They could have sent in the reserves to help, you know, and stuff like this. I mean, we pay the Army X amount of money, and they should be just like the National Guard down the States. They should be sent in. They've got more manpower, more experience, and management of, you know, situations like this.
First of all, the provincial government has to have a major emergency, has got to ask the federal government, and the federal government then allocates troops. It hasn't been done since the bad floods in the valley, as far as I can recall. And, of course, the odd prison riot. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Webster.
Morning, ma'am.
I'm an unemployed professional welfare recipient. How is that for a mouthful?
I'm very pleased to meet you.
Well, I'll tell you.
How does one become a professional welfare recipient? Are you a professional? Or?
I'm a professional with degrees as long as my arm, and because of circumstances, needed to go on welfare.
I can understand it.
Did you know that as of April of this year that you are not allowed to earn part-time work for the first 8 months?
None at all?
None at all.
And after 8 months, what are you allowed to earn?
Then you're allowed to earn $50 a week.
It used to be $50 a week at any level, didn't it?
Yeah, and I'm getting on welfare $375 a month, and
Oh, dear. So
and I'm really working hard on the job market. But just to say, it's just ironic that the highest, it's 52% of people pay into the lottery, and now the government's going to put its emphasis on that, and the UIC and welfare, et cetera, et cetera. There just seems to be no rhyme and reason. The people, the idea of people being important is really not here.
Well, I have a basic moral objection to lotteries in any case, let me tell you that, my dear. But let me ask you a question if you can stand it. How old are you?
I'm 56.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a professional counselor, and I was employed with the alcohol drug programs. And because of personal reasons, in fact, having to deal with my incest from years back, I needed time off. And I needed time off in a time in '83 when the government put a freeze on the alcohol drug programs, right?
So you lost your job?
And so I was supposed to get into a job in April, and then they closed a clinic in the north, like in Powell Street, and then my job fell through. And because of financial situations, I'm working hard to get into the job market, but I'm just saying it's just terrifically hard.
My dear, thank you very much indeed for your call, and it was nice of you to share your problem with us. Thanks, my dear. That break your heart? What can you do? We're back after the break. Powerhouse of a program tomorrow. We've got William Epstein, Canadian Arms Control Negotiator, Michael Pence, the Open University of UK, who's an expert on the nuclear winter. And there's a very special bonus. We have the charming, delightful, famous Maureen Forrester, Canadian opera star, who is chairman of Canada Council and can dish out the lolly to us in the morning at 9 a.m. precisely. Following the Pemberton floods on midnight on Check.